you know she's the victim of victims. And this week we learned she's the victim of victims because her hair was being scorched while she was trying to get straight hair in her white sorority. And yeah, that's a struggle. So we found out she had preeclampsia before. I don't remember what the heck we found out about her, why she's even a bigger victim than we thought she was in the second one, because I didn't finish the second one. But this one, you know, she had to iron her hair, flat iron her hair on the stove, people. A hot stove. She didn't have a flat iron at Northwestern University. She couldn't afford one. Or she didn't know what they were. So, yeah. That's what we're getting from Meghan this week, guys. Served up hot and fresh from Meg herself. I usually prepare notes. I usually have notes next to me. I really think about what I want to talk about with you guys when I'm going through and listening to this thing, giving commentary on it, but I couldn't do it. I'm just gonna give my commentary and just go off the cuff here. You guys seem to like when I just blab and go off the cuff, my impressions of some of the things that I'm listening to and reading, but I'm just, the first thing I'm gonna say is I didn't talk about this in my commentary on the first episode of this podcast, this Confessions of a Female Founder. I didn't talk about it, the theme song. But if you haven't seen that video where I talk about that first episode, where Meghan talks about how she had preeclampsia, I was a little triggered in some parts in there because I myself suffered from preeclampsia in 2013 when I gave birth to my twins. It was very serious. I went on the Paula M channel and talked about it. So I will link all of that stuff. I'll link my video and I'll link Paula's video where we go into it, into the weeds about her basically talking about how she had preeclampsia, but she throws out one sentence and that's just very responsible. But let's just talk about one thing that I like about the podcast, the theme song. It's a banger, okay? Have you guys listened to this theme song? And do you have it rattling around in your head for hours and hours like I do? It's like, time to get down cause I'm moving up. Time to get down cause I'm moving up. I ain't got no time to get down cause I'm moving up. Now I guess that's Meghan telling us that she's moving up. You know, she is moving on up. And then I thought about the Jeffersons, one of my favorite TV shows that I used to watch in the 80s growing up. And I was a little mad that she was kind of copping the Jeffersons, but she likes to cop a lot of stuff. But I guess we're all mean, horrible, rotten naysayers. We don't understand her. She's been a victim of a really horrible, oppressive, racist monarchy. And she doesn't have time to get down because she's moving up. And she's going to put that theme song on her podcast and she's going to plant it in your head. Now, you don't have to listen to the podcast. I told you that in the first video that I talked about this podcast. I'm here so you don't have to listen to it. And there's a bunch of us out here that are talking about it. So if you don't listen to it, you might not be able to hear no time to get down cause I'm moving up. No time to get down cause I'm moving up. I mean, it's very catchy. I will give her that. It's my kids were like, that's a banger. That is a great song. It is. So that is one thing I actually enjoyed about the podcast. But as we get further into episode 3, oh, and that's another thing. I thought that maybe I would listen to episode 2 and pop on and talk to y'all about it, but I don't want to. There's other things I would rather talk about. I'd rather talk about makeup. I'd rather talk about stuff that's going on with Blake Lively and different stuff in the news and Ryan Reynolds and all that. That's actually interesting to me. Meghan's kind of just like a carny sideshow at this point, but it's sad. You know, we all know it's the car crash, can't look away from. And I know I'm blabbing and I apologize. I guess what I'm trying to say is I listen to this stuff and I feel like I'm turning into Jello. I'm like a Jello mold brain just going blah, 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 blah. There's nothing, I'm not taking anything from this. I thought maybe I'd had some notes for you guys that I could just prepare a thoughtful commentary on it, but there's really nothing to I'm stuttering, I'm just a mess. And the whole time I'm like, no time to get down cause I'm moving up. I mean, if you haven't stopped the video by now, and if you haven't clicked unsubscribe, I really appreciate it. I would appreciate it if you clicked subscribe. I'm looking at my metrics, probably 80% of people that are watching my stuff aren't subscribed. And you guys really seem to like my last couple videos. I've got some stuff that's not Meghan, you guys. I'm reading a really great book by Joan Crawford called My Way of Life. And I talk about how if anybody was a diva, and rightly so, and deserved a Netflix show and a platform, it was Joan. Joan is a badass. So I will link that playlist too. Go watch that. I have such fun making those videos and no one's watching them. So shed a tear. But anyway, no time to get down because we're moving up. We're going to get into this episode and it's a banger. So let's get going. Okay, so let's get into it. There's a lot of stuff that we're all familiar with that's on brand here for Meghan. That's running all through this podcast. The thing that I noticed right off the bat, she is doing that newscaster talk show hosty voice that she does. I talked about that in my first episode talking about this, but there's a lot of breathiness. And I really wanted to play clips for you guys, but I'm a little paranoid that I'm going to get strikes because that kind of stuff happens because she's very, very serious about people talking about her stuff. But for example, I'm going to read to you part of the transcript, and she's talking about who the guest is. Now, this person is called Katie Lee, and she's a co-owner of that hair salon out in Venice, California called Highbrow Hippie. And if y'all remember, she was photographed with her at some opening red carpet type party back in fall of 2024. I think it was in November sometime. I don't remember. I'll throw a picture up here. So no one really knew who this woman was, but we saw Meghan clutching onto this woman, helping her promote her new brand. And I put that in my little file cabinet in my brain. I remember at the time thinking, I bet you this woman's going to pop up on whatever thing she does, whether it's like a podcast or something. Like it's all tit for tat in Hollywood. So I'm sure they had some little kind of arrangement where Meghan's going to come out and she's going to bring a lot of eyeballs onto that little event when this lady Katie launched this hair care line of hers. And I'm sure that part of the deal was, okay, and then when I'm launching my next podcast, you're going to come on. And then lo and behold, here she is, right? This Katie lady. And a lot of victim talk, a lot of this, like we all know that she surrounds herself with extremely privileged and wealthy people, and they all sit around and smoke their cigars and talk about how they're victims. And so she's going on about Katie, telling us about her, telling us that she's the go-to colorist for names you'd be familiar with. And the way she talks, she recently launched a product line that sold out not once, but twice. And it's just all of these voice inflections and it's sighing and it's hard to listen to because it's hard to take someone seriously when they're talking so breathy like this. It sounds like a 1-900 number. It's really weird. So she's talking about how this woman's business started out as a blog, and then she starts talking about how they met in 2020 during the pandemic. And Meghan apparently had this super high profile hair colorist and stylist from New York that is a name. His name's Serge Normand. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong because Meghan says it all Frenchy in her show, but I've heard of him before because he was Julia Roberts' main hair man. So that's how I had heard of this guy and knew of him in years past. But apparently he did Meghan's hair for her wedding. But anyway, so she's talking about how that she's friends with this guy and it was the pandemic and she's locked down and she's in her Montecito mansion. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Correction. She wasn't in the Montecito mansion yet. She was still in Tyler Perry's house. But it's really funny the way she talks about it because she says, it was the pandemic and I kept ordering boxed hair dye. I thought, this is Meghan, I thought I'm going to look just like she does on the box. Instead, it was this very inky, almost Elvira-esque black hair. I had texted Serge. Let's text him. And he said, you need to see Katie. So you came over, you were masked and all the thing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't believe for a second that she did any type of box hair dye. And then she talks about how, I guess, the box hair dye didn't turn out, so that's why she's texting colors to the stars Mr. Normand, who recommends Katie to come over, and she's masked and she comes over and she saves Meghan's hair woes and everything is wonderful now, rainbows and sunshine. But I'm thinking, why would you do the box route in the first place? That's why it doesn't ring true. Like, why wouldn't you just get on the horn with your friend Mr. Normand at the beginning and get Katie over to the house and put out the fires here? Because see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, none of this makes sense. She's always trying to be relatable and throw out these weird little antidotes that just don't make sense. They just don't make sense. So basically, she comes over, and it was such a vivid day in her memory because, you know, LA in general, it was the height of the George Floyd, it was the protest, it was this, it was that. And Katie talks about how when she walked in, H and Meghan were so welcoming and so wonderful, and they gave her such big bear hugs. And Katie's supposedly thinking, I don't know these people. I'm not a hugger, but I guess I'm gonna, you know, meet her and just be thrilled about this. And I'm thinking to myself, again, this is supposedly the height of the pandemic. It's a stranger coming to your house in a mask to do your hair. This is a crisis of epic proportions, and then you're gonna further make everyone feel weird by being a hugger and bear hugging them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, all this is so stupid. It's so dumb. So dumb. So then they're just going on and on about they just bonded and became lifelong besties because she is a dear friend. She tells us that in the beginning, that this Katie lady, they are dear friends. Like everyone Meghan talks to, very dear friends. And I guess what Katie was doing during the beginning of the pandemic was she had just opened a hair salon business. She was panicking. She didn't know what to do. So her team and her co-owner, they were calling themselves the Florence Nightingale of hair color because they had to rescue celebrities that couldn't dye their hair during the pandemic. This is a big deal. So what they were doing was they were, I guess, pre-mixing hair care color kits for their celebrity clients. And Katie says that she was going around in her car, this is a quoting, I'm reading this, in like a full hazmat suit, throwing hair color over their fences or leaving at their door at nighttime and then scurrying away like a little mouse. But they did enough sales in just a few months to pay their rent on time, make sure that their team members at the salon had money, which was great. I'm not poo-pooing that. But what I'm saying is she's talking about how, this is Katie now, how she stayed afloat during that time. And she was also saying that some of her clients paid for their services a year in advance to kind of help her out. So because of that, she was able to cut checks to her team members to keep them afloat. And I'm thinking to myself, again, hello, wealth, privilege. You're able to do that because your clients are these multimillionaires, probably billionaires, able to do this so that you could pass that on to your team, your stylists. And while that was a good thing, kept everyone afloat, these are not realistic stories about how to build businesses. I mean, people aren't going to really get anything from the fact that Katie had billion and million dollar clients who could pay for services in advance so her business could stay afloat. That kind of ticked me off listening to that. That's not really giving me any kind of business tips. That's just saying that you know a bunch of rich, wealthy people who were able to keep you afloat when the majority of people in that state, especially California, because they were really, really crazy with the lockdowns. Small business owners perished during that time. Life savings, everything, just gone. People were wiped out and despondent. And, well, you know, it's a good thing that Katie's got some celeb friends that can help her out. So yes, good thing she had the connection. So then they're talking about, okay, what was Katie going to do when she had to reopen after the pandemic? We already know she was going to stay afloat because of all these celeb contacts she had, right? So she's talking about, and of course, this is where we have to interject the victim narrative. And it's probably not enough that she had celebrity clients helping her keep her business afloat. What we're going to talk about now is Meghan's going to bring up, like, when the salon's going to reopen, right? How are you going to address all the big conversations and topics? And they're referencing everything going on around the George Floyd stuff, all the protests, the just climate of the country. Everything was just all about race. Everything was racially charged. And what are we going to do? And Katie was saying, you know, I'm a Black woman and most of my clients weren't Black. And we had to all come together and talk about that big elephant in the room. And we were gearing to reopen. And we had, I'm reading this now, this is Katie. I had clients calling, texting, emailing in tears, wanting, I think a lot of them were dealing with feelings they never felt before, thoughts that they'd never have to think about before. Whether that would be guilt, whether that would just be wow. And so these are her celebrity clients, I guess, these champagne limousine liberals calling her in tears and saying, I've never had to really step back and say that Katie's existence may be very different than mine. And now here I'm asking her to take care of me once again, when really we should be taking care of her. And Meghan's like, wow. Yeah. And I'm just like, this is what we're talking about here. 5 years after all of that crazy overemphasis on division and pitting people next to each other. Like, I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up in California, Southern California, just like Meghan. I'm half Mexican. I went to school with white kids, Mexican kids, Asian kids, black kids. I watched Sesame Street in the 70s growing up. There were kids of all races on there. They don't get all of this stuff that they're just trying to dig up. I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist, but it's like, again, this isn't business advice, but who the heck am I? No one cares what I think. So then they just bang on about everything. And then like, at one point, Meghan says to her, yeah, all this is so heavy. We're just going to share this for a glass of wine on Sunday. And then Katie says, yeah, wine on Sunday, we'll do that. And I was just like, I need a glass of wine. Or listen to this garbage. And then she's talking about how she wants to build the salon, Highbrow Hippie, as being like a place that's like an old school salon, a safe space, an exchange of ideas. And I guess during the pandemic, she was talking about how she had a patio in the back of her salon that clients and guests of her salon would use. And because during the pandemic, they were locked down, her and her co-founder were doing, I guess, videos or podcasts talking about all the racially charged issues of the day. And then, once they reopened, they were going to bring everyone back, all walks of life, color, creed, religion. And they were just going to all sit down and they were going to dive into these issues when the salon reopened. And I'm thinking to myself, can we just go and get our hair done? Why does it have to be a political dissertation? Can we just go get our hair done? But, again, this is the whole California limousine liberal culture on high volume here. But let's turn it down, okay? Let's turn it down because I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's just... So she goes into, this is Katie, about how she went to Spelman College and her background. And she also talks about growing up in Connecticut. And it sounds like it was a pretty affluent area. And she's talking about when she went to Spelman College, which is an all-black college, very historic, very famous. And she talks about how for the first time in her life, it was very freeing because she felt like she was around people that were just like her, young black women who had ideas and wanted to do things in the world and all this kind of stuff. And, that's great. That is awesome. More power to you. But she also talks about how she felt a little out of place because before that, she had only gone to white private school. So it was just such an eye-opener for her to be at Spelman. And again, I'm like, can we just have a little game show sign with the light bulbs and like, privilege, privilege, privilege? I mean, they're such victims. They're such victims, yet she has enough money to go to an all-black college that's super expensive in the South. Her family had money, I guess, coming from Jamaica to go to white affluent schools in Connecticut. I'm like, where's the hardship here? Why are we talking about politics and race again when I thought this was a business podcast? Like, she's a cosmetologist. She was apparently trained in New York City to do hair and all that. That's right up my alley. I want to talk about that. Let's talk about how to build a beauty business. There's tons of people out there that have built beauty businesses and they don't have celebrity friends to help them out and keep them afloat. I don't know about you, but I've got way more respect for people like Marlene Estelle or Tati or Patrick Starr, like these beauty influencers that really came from just turning their cameras on in their house. And they are just self-taught. They're extremely gifted, extremely talented. They've made a name for themselves with their channels and their platforms, and they've launched businesses from nothing, had to prove themselves. Those are the type of people she needs to get on this show. People that really did come from nothing, that didn't have celebrity contacts to keep them afloat and help them during hard times. Because even in the second episode, which I ended up turning off, that co-founder, the girl who codes lady that Meghan was talking about, she basically talks about how she started her nonprofits was because she got Jack Dorsey from Twitter on board and involved. It's like, because you know people, because you know rich and privileged people who are going to help you get where you need to go. This gets into my favorite part of the podcast because Meghan says, and I'm going to read her. Okay, this is her quote. It kind of reminds me when I was at Northwestern and I moved into Kappa, our sorority there, which was a pretty much all white sorority, by the way. Meghan didn't have women of color friends when she was in college, didn't seem like it. She says, I don't even think they made plug-in flat irons at the time. If they did, I didn't know where they were because I had the little stove with the flat iron that would go in and have a paper towel on the side. I mean, there's probably half the people listening to this going, what is she talking about? So yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm listening to this and I'm saying, what are you talking about? Flat irons were very much a thing in the 90s, okay? And this woman graduated high school in 1999. So if she entered Northwestern University in 1999, there would be no reason on God's green earth why she would have to be like a Victorian woman with like an iron on a stove with paper towel ironing her hair. Flat irons were very much a thing. And women of color that have textured hair, it's called a silk press. Tons of black women would straighten their hair and either make it look bouncy and curly but more silky or stick straight. Who remembers Aaliyah? Remember Aaliyah, the beautiful, gorgeous Aaliyah, the R&B singer from the late 90s? She passed away in 2001 at the age of 24 in a tragic plane crash in the Bahamas. Who remembers Aaliyah, how beautiful and gorgeous she was, rocking her really long pin straight hair? And you could look up YouTube videos. Women of color are on there talking about how to do Aaliyah hair. Like, what is Aaliyah's thing? And it's all talking about flat ironing. It's all talking about silk pressing. I think of what Meghan's talking about, ironing your hair by a stove. And I'm thinking of like these weird things that like women in the 60s would do. What is she talking about? She knows that people are going to clap back and say, what are you talking about? Because that's exactly what she says. She says, I had the little stove with the flat iron that would go in and have a paper towel on the side. I'm reading this verbatim, you guys. I mean, there's probably half the people listening to this going, what is she talking about? Or you'd pull it out and have the little scorch marks. I remember most of the girls in the sorority who were not black say, what's that smell? Is hair burning? And it was just what you would do to figure out how to grapple with this texture of hair. There's no way in HELL that she did not have something to style her hair with, some type of hot tool. Okay? This is 1990s. 1999. This is not 1899. Why are you throwing that in there? I don't understand why you're throwing that in there. So that she could show that she was a woman of color in an all-white sorority and she was oppressed and she was just trying to, straighten her hair so she could look like all the other white girls in her sorority. I don't know. Was it kind of like a veiled way of saying that they were making fun of her because they could smell her scorched hair wafting through the sorority, and then that was just like the smell of oppression for Meghan? Make this make sense, you guys. I mean, come on. And then they just talk about what Katie wants to do with her company. And I went on this website, this highbrow hippie. You guys. Highbrow hippie. I think Katie is hoping that the bread and butter of her beauty business moving forward is going to be her products, because it's one thing to have a brick and mortar and do people's hair, but that costs in time. You physically have to do it. You physically have to pay people, rent, all this. So she launched this highbrow hippie hair care wellness product line. And when you go on this website, you guys, to get her hair oil, which supposedly is the holy grail hair oil of all hair oils, and her hair vitamins, it's $206. So that's what she's hoping to do. She's hoping that she can move a lot of those units, and at $206 US a pop, that's a way to build an empire. So apparently, according to Meghan, she sold out not once, but twice. And I'm just thinking to myself, when is the business advice coming in here? She doesn't give us any type of background as to why she conceived of this hair care oil and these vitamins, except to tell us that she didn't want to just do a shampoo and conditioner because it's too saturated of a market. So she's got these products on her website. The Root Replenish Active Growth Serum alone is $88. And the vitamins on their own are $108, but you can buy them both for $206. That's a savings to you. But anyway, according to Meghan, she sold out not once, but twice. And then they're already talking about Meghan saying that this hair growth, active growth serum has been named best hair care serum by Oprah Daily. Okay, yet another person that they're all in cahoots with to do a glorious write-up. I mean, does anyone care about Oprah's favorites anymore? I mean, I think I stopped caring about Oprah's favorites the last time I bought one of her magazines on the newsstand in 2005, when I was maybe 30 years old and kind of still liking Oprah on the Oprah train. I got off that train a really long time ago. I don't really know of anybody that cares about Oprah's favorites. I mean, Oprah's favorites are stuff like a pair of cashmere slippers at Christmas for $750. I mean, talk about out of touch, out of touch. So anyway, there's a part in this where Carrie's talking about doing something called R&D. And she says, coming up with ideas for what she wants to launch after the pandemic for her products. So she had a questionnaire that she sent out to all of her high-profile celebrity friends and clients. And she said it was a very in-depth questionnaire, and it was being super nosy. And then Meghan says, yeah, you did a little R&D. And then Carrie says, yeah, we did a lot of R&D, and it was just to inform ourselves. This is what people are thinking. This is what people need. And the impact of the stress was showing up in people's hair, and like, what could I do? And then this serum, it's just popped into, and I'm thinking to myself, hold the phone. Just back up, ladies. Back up, wealthy, privileged ladies. Why don't you explain to the average person listening to this merry-go-round what R&D means? R&D means research and development. But a lot of people don't know that. And I don't fault you for not knowing that, because you're probably not wanting to launch a beauty care line or anything like that. Maybe you want to launch a coffee shop in your neighborhood. And research and development is important, and it's a buzzword among entrepreneurs. But if you are just starting to want to even conceive of starting a business, you don't even know what that means. Help us out, Meghan. Help us out, Katie. Throwing out acronyms and not even saying what they mean and assuming that people know what they mean. I mean, that's irresponsible. Is that just me? I think it is. I think it is. Just like I think it's irresponsible to throw out one sentence that she almost died from preeclampsia. I suffered from it, and it's so rare. It's so rare, and it's so scary. And then, okay, let's talk about something else. How irresponsible was that? That's what made me turn on a camera and make an almost hour-long video about what preeclampsia is and how deadly it is and how it's a lot more common than Meghan bangs on about. So watch that video if you haven't. But it's just, you guys, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. And talking about venture capital and how to go, but they don't really talk about how to go about getting it, really. And then they bang on about how women of color don't have any investors, and it's just pitiful. It's just pitiful how much women of color do not have people who care about them and want to invest in them. And maybe that's the case, but let's change it by being positive. But it didn't seem to make a lot of difference in Katie's case. She seemed to have a lot of people ready, willing, and able to help her as a woman of color. And it seemed like a lot of the investing and a lot of things that allowed Katie to stay afloat was her wealthy clientele who believed in her, a Black entrepreneur woman. So I'm not exactly sure why everyone is a victim, and why just because you're Black that no one is going to trust that you have an idea in your head to start a business and it's so horrible and awful and rotten, and let's just drink our wine and talk about how horrible everybody is. And then they talk about what a lot of people that start these beauty companies and other companies in the wellness area like to do. They like to build them up, and then sell them off, like to big companies, like say Unilever or Procter and Gamble or whatever, stuff like that. And Meghan is already going on that with Katie, because she's saying, quote, this is Meghan. Meghan says, so let's imagine and assume when you sell, because you will, that will be a great day of celebration. What would you do in your next chapter? And it's like, hold the phone, hold the phone. It's ringing, but hold the phone here. Seriously, we're already talking about achieving billion-dollar status and selling off our biz. I mean, people that maybe don't know about who this woman is and what she's all about, who think that they're going to listen and get some kind of business advice to get off the ground, and even maybe enough capital from a friend or family member to believe in what they're doing, like get a business loan of maybe 25 grand or something. But she's already talking about what Katie's going to do when she sells her billion-dollar hair growth serum empire to a company like, say, Unilever? What are her plans then? I don't care what her plans are then. If I wanted to get some business advice, I ain't gonna find it here, ladies and gentlemen. That's the point. My battery died. From my mouth that wouldn't stop about this podcast. So I had a little lunch, calmed down a little, and I'm going to direct your attention to around minute 45 in the podcast. Again, I'm not going to play it because I'll probably get a strike, but Katie is talking about a completely new chapter in her life, and apparently she has a new love in her life. And when I tell you that Meghan reacts like the cast of Mean Girls in her squealing and her excitement, it's off the charts. Don't listen to that part with headphones in because you're going to go. I'm just going to read it to you. So Katie says, this new love of mine. And then Meghan's like giggling and laughing and like breathing. And she's like, I just can't with you. This is so unfair. This is so unfair because we have 9 minutes and all I want to do is talk about the guy. Is it the guy? The guy? Yeah. It is. Okay. It's so exciting. And he's so handsome. And I'm just like, are you a humanitarian feminist trying to break molds and tell women that they don't need men to succeed, but yet you're sitting here acting like a middle schooler? Literally. I kid you not. Just, if you're going to listen to anything, just go to the 45-minute mark and listen to her squeal. Because that's actually a highlight of the episode. That's the only part where she kind of gets excited. I mean, she's like feigning excitement and they're always fawning over each other with all this stuff. But then there's lots of flowery language. You know that she loves to do that. And there's one point in the podcast when I was listening to it, and I don't even remember where it was. I don't care enough to go back and find out where it was. But she talks about, Meghan says the phrase word salad. And I thought, aha, you know, remember Eddie Murphy, Coming to America? Aha. I thought, yeah, she's listening to people talk about her because that is one of the biggest criticisms she gets, is that she never gets to the point. She's just using so much superfluous, flowery language and she never ever gets to the point of anything. And it's always like these phrases like looking at everything from a different lens and all, and she says that too in here. Here's an example. There's a part in the podcast when she's talking about when Katie's coming up with the idea for her product line and she's ideating the idea. That's something that Meghan says. When you were ideating the idea. And I'm just like, who talks like that? And then this is what she says. So Katie's talking about how they were able basically to secure a small business loan during the pandemic. And even Katie's suffering from this a little bit because she's saying that during the pandemic, her and her team, and she says, quote, with our small, mighty team in our atelier during the pandemic, we managed to net well over $1 million in a profit. Why don't you just say the people that work for you in your salon? No, it's her small, mighty team in her atelier, which, okay, fine, go for it if that's how you want to talk. How you talk. So she was able to secure that small business loan. Again, nothing really telling us how you did it. What did you do with your small and mighty team in your atelier to net well over $1 million in profit? I would love to know. Talked a little bit about how she was mixing hair dye, I guess, custom mixes for her celebrity clientele during the pandemic and throwing it over their fences and having to scurry away in a hazmat suit and all that. That sounds scary to me. But tell us a little more, Katie. I want to know. Because Katie does actually sound like quite a lovely person who seems very talented. Let's talk about it, guys. Let's talk about it more. And then so she's saying that they were able to get that funding, even though we don't know what they did to get it, aside from mixing hair dye and throwing it over a fence and having someone give you a lot of money to keep your business afloat. She's saying, yes, banks approved these loans and very few people were able to get these loans, but we did. And I'm sure there were some letters of recommendation and different things to the bank by celebrity clientele. I bet you anything. But they don't talk about that. And then, so this is what Meghan says. Right. So by instilling confidence in the people that were going to invest in you, it gave you freedom, which I think as an entrepreneur, part of it too, is you're always kept a really tight team. So did you hear the first part of that? She says, by instilling confidence in the people that were going to invest in you, it gave you freedom. She got a business loan. You secured a business loan. Good for you. What is with all of this? And then she's talking about even when you have a cap table and you have investors, I think all the investors that you've brought on, they're so emotionally invested in you as well as financially invested in you and blah, blah. The cap table, like what are you talking about? Can you talk like a normal person so someone that wants to learn how to start a business can just get down into the dirt with you and figure this out? But you can't figure it out with her, okay? You're not going to figure out anything with her. You're going to listen to her squeal about the fact that Katie has a new boyfriend, a man friend in her life. She'll squeal and get excited about that. And this episode is called Building Your Brand Brick by Brick. Where are the bricks? The bricks have not been delivered. We're standing here waiting on the bricks. We've been standing out here for a long time waiting on the bricks. It's not happening. And then let's see, what else are we talking about? So, not really much. Meghan says how proud she is of her, which is kind of nice. I mean, at least she's saying she's proud of someone for a change, and not her guests saying that they're proud of her, because I would say of the three that I've listened to so far, this is the least that the guest fawns over Meghan. I will say, to Meghan's credit, she's still at least letting her guests talk more and asking the guests more questions. But the problem is that she's not asking the right questions. I get the feeling that you are kind of getting in, but in the middle of a conversation. You don't know about the beginning. You don't know really about anything about how this person got to where they were. And they're talking the way that, say, wealthy entrepreneurial women would talk once they've reached the peak of success and they're trying to go to the cap table or whatever the heck she's talking about and just take it to the next level when they sell off their $1 billion empire to L'Oreal or something. But that's not really why people who would listen to this. There's nothing here. There is nothing here. So yeah, Meg's proud of her and she says thanks and all this kind of stuff. Then at the end, toward the end, Meghan's giving us a glimpse of who the next guest is going to be. And I can tell right away who it is. And I'm going to read to you from the transcript. So she says, this is Meghan. Next week, we're talking to a founder who never let no get in her way. I had no idea how many no's I would get. Now, this is the voice of the next guest, right? I had no idea how many no's I would get. No's from the amazing experts in the beauty industry. No's from some of my favorite stores I would shop in. I mean, I would send our samples to everyone. And then Meghan comes back in and said, can you guess who it is? Can you guess who it is? You know, she's so excited for you because you probably don't know, but she knows. And if you don't know, next week you'll know. See you then. Well, I know who it is, you guys. It's Jamie Lynn Kern, or whatever her name is, the founder of It Cosmetics, the one that sold to, this woman's a bajillionaire. She sold to L'Oreal. And if you'll remember, was it last summer that Meghan was in that kind of conference / businesswoman summit in the Hamptons, and she was being photographed with different entrepreneurial powerhouse women, and one of them was Jamie. And I remember seeing that as well, saying, oh, we're going to hear from Jamie sometime in the future. Something Meghan's going to drag her in, whether it's going to be her Netflix show or a podcast or something, and then lo and behold, here she is. Now, actually, Jamie, she is a real person to get a lot of knowledge from, because she basically started It Cosmetics from her apartment, and I read a little bit of her story, blood, sweat, and tears. She was on QVC just hawking her wares like a mad woman, and she built an empire just from It Cosmetics blowing up on QVC. She's actually someone that you could learn from, and she probably has a lot to say, but we all know what's going to happen. She's not going to be asked the right questions. There's going to be a lot of probably giggling and breathiness, and I'm sure we're going to discover something else about Meghan that we didn't know before in this next episode that's hopefully gonna, in her mind, hopefully gonna get us to want to feel sorry for her even more, because you know she's the victim of victims. And this week we learned she's the victim of victims because her hair was being scorched while she was trying to get straight hair in her white sorority. And that's a struggle. So we found out she had preeclampsia before. I don't remember what the heck we found out about her, why she's even a bigger victim than we thought she was in the second one, because I didn't finish the second one. But this one, she had to iron her hair, flat iron her hair on the stove, people. A hot stove. She didn't have a flat iron at Northwestern University. She couldn't afford one. Or she didn't know what they were. So, yeah. That's all I'm going to say about Meghan's victimhood. So, yeah, that's what we're getting from Meghan this week, guys. Served up hot and fresh from Meg herself. And next week, it's going to be another billionaire that we're going to learn probably nothing from. Also, what I think I will say about this podcast and all of her business endeavors is I don't think that she is putting on a podcast and getting successful women to talk about their businesses to try to help anybody listening. She wants to cling onto and glob onto these rich female entrepreneurs that have actually made something of themselves because she wants the info. She wants the goods. And if she can set up a friendship, she's getting a lot of goods for free. Because in this episode, Katie talks about going to some type of entrepreneurial workshop founded by a company called Dream Ventures. I looked up Dream Ventures, and can I just tell you, Dream Ventures looks like it's a bunch of dudes that are the investors. And the offshoot of this Dream Ventures company is they've got these accelerators. That's a fancy way for saying that they are these Zoom meetings that they hold and they give business advice. And I saw the one that was, I guess, from this past winter. I found it on the web, and it was called Dream Ventures Accelerators. So it runs for 7 weeks. It goes for about an hour and a half for 7 weeks straight, and the cost is $2,500. So that's what Katie was referencing, this accelerator program that she went to, where I guess she's just getting feedback and asking questions of these entrepreneurial women, investors, what have you, trying to figure out how she's going to get capital for her business. Mind you, she knows a lot of celebs to help her, but I've mentioned that 50 bajillion times. But anyway, 7 weeks for about an hour and a half at a time at $2,500. That's a little over, what, $350 per session. So you better get your questions answered in 90 minutes once a week for $357. And I wonder how many people sign up to these things. I mean, can you imagine paying that kind of money for a Zoom meeting that lasts 90 minutes and you opened up the Zoom thing and there's 30 people in there? You ain't going to get your questions answered. But apparently Katie said it was valuable to her and she got lots of questions answered at this accelerator from dreamventures.co. But see, Meg is not even going to spend that. She's just going to make a friendship and call someone a dear, dear, dear friend, kiss up to them in the Hamptons last year, and then get them on the podcast to try to pick their brain, I guess. But then she's not really getting out of it. I don't know. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. I have a feeling that any advice that Meghan is getting from these women that she's befriending as dear, dear friends and having them on her podcast, she's getting the info behind closed doors. These elites are going to help themselves. They're not giving us anything. It's just a giggle fest for show. They talk about self-love platitudes and victimhood and all that, and they figure that that's what she's going to monetize, that part. That's the easy part. The real goods from people like Jamie Lynn and Katie and all these people, she ain't going to give us those goods. She's not going to give it to us on the podcast. She's going to get those goods behind closed doors while they're sipping wine over at the Olive Garden mansion. So that's all I have to say about this, you guys. Not much. Fun to listen to, and the fact that, again, this is just like the Carney sideshow that keeps on giving. I'm sure it's going to be like this for the next, how many more episodes do we have of this? I cannot promise you if I'm going to review another one, talk about another one. I talked about this one because I was somewhat interested, because Katie is a professional cosmetologist, beauty entrepreneur. I love beauty. That's my field. I'm a licensed esthetician. I didn't really learn anything. And the first episode I talked about and listened to because of the whole Preeclampsia deal, and that got me all fired up. But other than that, thank you guys so much for hanging out and listening to me rant on and on and on. I do appreciate it. I'm going to try to get this edited and up as quick as I can because I got some other things that I want to film. I've actually got another Joan video coming, chapter 5 from My Way of Life, where Joan Crawford talks about working as a woman in a man's world. And remember, Joan wrote that book in 1971. If you want to learn how to be a female entrepreneur, listen to someone like Joan, who actually went through the fire in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. She survived the Hollywood studio system, came from nothing, was beaten, was abused. This woman, if you want to learn something, listen to my Joan playlist. You ain't getting nothing from this Confessions of a Female Flounder. Is it flounder or founder? It's founder. Confessions of a Female Founder. Please click like. That like button helps me. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Bye.